ever heard anybody say, oh, new gen anime is all just hollow copies of old anime? Usually they'll reference things like Black Clover or JJK and say,
Look, this is just a Naruto copy.
look, in JJK there's a team of 2 guys and a girl and their leader is a white-haired, undefeatable monster who happens to cover his eyes. JJK must be a copy of Naruto. Black Clover is a story about a blonde-haired orphan whose best friend is a black-haired orphan, and they have a rivalry to see who's gonna become stronger and become the Wizard King. Sounds a lot like Hokage to me. And what makes it even worse is that the blonde-haired kid eventually gets a demon inside of him, just like Naruto. Now, if you've been around for long enough, unfortunately, you will hear a lot of people saying things like this. But the problem with this ideology is first and foremost believing that shonen anime has ever been original. See, if you genuinely espouse the belief that you believe that JJK or Black Clover is a copy of Naruto, you're ignoring a couple of key factors. See, because if you can sit here and say that JJK or Black Clover are a copy of Naruto, I can just as easily say that Naruto is a copy of Hunter x Hunter. You mean Kurapika and Sasuke, both the last people surviving from a clan of people targeted for their red eyes, now hellbent on revenge, don't sound like similar characters to you? But I know better, and I know that Naruto isn't a ripoff of Hunter x Hunter, though there is a lot of similarities. And the real way to know better is to understand that shonen anime has never been all that original. Listen, for the last 30 to 40 years that shonen anime has had a chokehold over the anime community, there has been a formulaic way to make your shonen anime as popular as possible. And that was, don't do anything that outside the norm. See, listen, there's a reason that JJK is substantially more popular than Tsubuki Bisco, both shonen anime that came out roughly around the same time. However, JJK has way more mass appeal, and that's because JJK is about a bunch of high schoolers who have to fight demons and they have a quirky teacher, and there's a cool in-universe power system that can explain basically everything that happens. While Tsubuki Bisco is about 2 boys falling in love while riding a crab through a rust-ridden post-apocalyptic era while trying to cure the world through the power of mushrooms. Originality doesn't necessarily pay in the world of anime. I mean, I love it. Tsubuki Bisco is one of my favorite animes to come out in the last decade, but I'm not everyone. But here's the thing, the problem with originality goes far beyond just shonen anime. Because if we can just keep going further and further back into shonen anime, we can point at shonen anime made in the 70s and the 80s and be like, ah, that's the true original piece. Everything is a Fist of the North Star or Astro Boy ripoff. And while early anime like those two absolutely blazed the trail for the anime world as we know it currently, even calling those pieces of media original is a stretch, because everything, and I mean everything, goes back way before anime was even an idea. Shinto mythology, Hinduism, Buddhism, the journey to the West, monogatari's, which are Japanese epics. All of these things have inspired all anime that you consume. But here's the thing, if your understanding of Japanese mythology and Japanese monogatari's is cursory at best, you wouldn't see these connections. You would just see, huh, that anime seems like this anime, without realizing that the reason that these 2 anime look alike isn't because this anime is based off this anime, it's because they're both based off the same Japanese mythological ideas. And Naruto is no exception to that rule. In fact, Naruto, by many who know, has been described as one of the least original stories ever told. And genuinely, my understanding of monogatari and Japanese mythology and Hindu and Buddhist ideologies is why I believe I understand what Kishimoto was gonna write so well, because a good amount of the time he's just remixing things that have already been written. And while there's technically nothing wrong with that, obviously he takes a lot of inspiration from Japanese mythology, monogatari's, Hinduism, Buddhism, and applies those characters from these stories into his own universe, but by and large, he's writing those characters into unique situations that didn't happen to them in their original stories. I mean, not all the time, but most of the time. Which is why today I want to sit down and tell you all about everything from Naruto that was inspired by previous media. And by previous media, I don't mean things like Hunter x Hunter or Astro Boy or Fist of the North Star. No, today I want to sit down and describe to you everything from Naruto that comes from things like Shinto mythology, Hinduism, Buddhism, monogatari's. Basically, if it came from before any of us were alive, That's what I want to talk about. Because by depicting to you just how much of Naruto is not original IP, I believe I can better display why some anime happen to look so similar, and how that's not an anime issue, but like a Japanese history issue. And relax, because today we're getting into our first actual history lesson. Because today we're talking Naruto is not an original anime. But before we get into all that, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you want to see me do deep dives on how some of your other favorite anime have been inspired by Japanese mythology, guys, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all of their anime. Or if you just want to hear me talk about Naruto or Boruto or some of your other favorite anime, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Who Talks Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. But if you do want to talk about some originality, boy oh boy do I have some merch for you, because as you can see, I'm wearing my Itachi Naruto 2024 political tee. But besides this shirt being incredibly comfortable and well-fitting, and having a fantastic front graphic, it's also got a fantastic back graphic, which is inspired by Bernie Sanders' mitten picture. But obviously, you know, Itachi. So, did my plugs give you enough time to pull out a notepad and a pencil for the notes you're gonna have to take today? No? Because genuinely, well, I do like to weave as much history into my videos as possible, as I believe that one can't truly begin to understand the beauty of the universe built within Naruto without understanding the influences that helped build it. And because of this, when we make videos about the Susanoo or the MS or Baryon mode, we'll do small little science or history lessons to make sure that you understand where the inspirations for these things came from. Because once you understand all these influences, you realize that Masashi Kishimoto is trying to mash a couple of different genres together. He's trying to take mythological influences from Japan's history, mash them together with ninjas, and bring them into a sci-fi universe. And once you understand that, understanding where he's trying to go with his stories becomes a whole lot easier. So now, let's get into making you understand Naruto. Now, there's really no easy way to start this video. I mean, sure, I could go chronologically throughout the entirety of Naruto and point out every single moment that was inspired by something else, but that would be a long video. So I'm just gonna start listing things, and hopefully that's good enough for you. Let's start with an easy inspiration that you may or may not already know about. And the reason that you may or may not know about this inspiration is because it's one of the more blatant rips from Japanese history, and it's also one of the more commonly known inspirations in Naruto. See, the legendary Sannin, that being Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya, are not original characters. In fact, even their design and their abilities are not original. See, the legendary Sannin actually all come from a monogatari, which I've only kind of explained very briefly what a monogatari is. Well, I'm not talking about the Monogatari series written by Nisio Isin, though really good anime, but confusing timeline. The Monogatari that we're talking about is an extended prose type of literature, comparable to what people in Eurocentric civilizations would call an epic. Now, Monogatari also have to have been written in a certain window of time within Japan. That is, between the Heian period and the Muromachi periods. That is to say, 794 to 1573. So, in essence, a monogatari is a long story that was written during a certain period in Japan. And the monogatari that the legendary Sannin come from is, you're gonna love this, The Tale of the Gallant Jiraiya, which, as a title, was obviously the inspiration for the majority of Jiraiya's books, like The Tale of the Utterly Gutless Shinobi, The Tale of Naruto Uzumaki, and so on and so forth. Well, I know what you're saying.
Well, Nick, are Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru just characters in this very old story?
I mean, yes, they are, but they're also the main characters of this story. And unfortunately, between this Monogatari and Naruto, they share more than just names. See, in this Monogatari, Orochimaru is the bad guy, the enemy of Tsunade and Jiraiya, and the three of them fight a myriad of epic battles. Orochimaru has the ability to turn himself into a snake, and Jiraiya, who learned toad magic from a toad sage, learned the ability to turn himself into a toad and also control and manipulate toads, being able to increase the size of toads to a degree where he can ride on them. Yes, Jiraiya was taught toad magic by a toad sage and is a toad-riding toad sage with the ability to turn himself into a toad. And Tsunade, can turn herself into a slug, but also a snail, because she learned from a sage that taught her slug magic. Now, there is one difference between the tale of the gallant Jiraiya and Naruto, and that is that Jiraiya and Tsunade are married in the tale of the gallant Jiraiya. So I bet you probably wish he copied that bit as well. He being Masashi Kishimoto, you get it. But enough about the legendary Sannin, let's get to some other very well-known inspirations that Masashi Kishimoto used. Because outside of the legendary Sannin being influenced by the tale of the gallant Jiraiya, most known likeness between Naruto and Japanese mythology is probably Sasuke and the Sarutobis. See, within the confines of the Naruto universe, Sasuke is named after a legendary ninja by the name of Sasuke Sarutobi. Now, Sasuke Sarutobi is a real person within Japanese history. The Naruto universe was so legendary that people like Mikoto Uchiha decided to name their child after him. Now, Sasuke Sarutobi existed before the likes of Hiruzen, but he acts not only as an influence for Sasuke, but the entirety of the Sarutobi clan. See, because Sasuke Sarutobi is usually talked about as having monkey-like agility, a legendary ninja who with the power of his monkey-like agility could accomplish any ninja task without identification. Now, this is because Sasuke Sarutobi in a large amount of his tales is portrayed as being raised by monkeys, which not only allowed Sasuke Sarutobi to be an incredible ninja, but also set the foundation for the Sarutobi clan being associated with monkeys in Naruto, as people like Konohamaru and Hiruzen have monkey summons. However, the monkey similarities don't end there, as Monkey King Enma and also Hiruzen have strong similarities to Sun Wukong, who comes from the story The Journey to the West, which was written in the late 16th century. Now, Journey to the West is one of the most legendary stories ever written, and acts as a large fountain of inspiration for tons of anime. Be it Goku from Dragon Ball Z, Jin Mori from God of High School, or multiple characters within Naruto. See, Sun Wukong has a bow staff that's able to extend infinitely, just like the one that Monkey King Enma is able to transform into so Hiruzen can wield him. And thus Hiruzen and Monkey King Enma, kind of acting in tandem, are supposed to represent Sun Wukong, while also representing Sasuke Sarutobi. But that's also not even the only thing that Hiruzen's staff is inspired by. King Enma's transformation into an adamantite staff has more meaning than just being related to Sun Wukong. See, because transformation adamantite staff in Japanese is Henge Kongo Noi. Now, the word Kongo in Japanese is actually a translation of a Hindu word, the Hindu word Vajra, which is a ritualistic object wielded by Indra. And it's actually a double meaning because Vajra is also a Sanskrit word, which meant thunderbolt and diamond, which refers to the adamantite staff's ability to attack with thunderous offensive capability while also being as hard as a diamond. And it also doesn't end there. Enma is also a reference completely separate of all of this. Enma is the Japanese translation of the Hindu word Yama, who's a Hindu god who decides where you go after you die. Now, in Japanese mythology, Enma is the god of the underworld who's served by Oni, Japanese demons, who also presides over where souls will go in their next lives, which is why there's so much symbolism between Enma being present at the moment that Hiruzen uses Reaper Death Seal, and why Enma more than anybody doesn't want Hiruzen to use it. We've started to get into the weeds a little bit here with ones that you may not have heard of prior. So let's step back out of the weeds here and talk about one of the more commonly known references that Naruto uses, and that would be none other than Kaguya, or Princess Kaguya. See, the idea of Kaguya actually comes from the oldest known monogatari on Earth, and that would be the tale of the bamboo cutter. See, in this story, Kaguya is found by a bamboo cutter who finds her as a glowing entity within a bamboo stalk he has cut. Finding this glowing baby in a bamboo stalk, the bamboo cutter and his wife named this baby Princess Kaguya, who lived with this family as their daughter until she regained her memories, remembering that she wasn't a human and she was actually an entity from the moon. However, she had been banished from the moon and didn't want to return to the moon. Now, eventually, she gets unbanished from the moon and returns to the moon, but not until her family and all of the humans that got to know her gave her something known as a Hagoromo, which in English translates to feather mantle. It's kind of like a feather hat necklace kind of thing. And thus, the thing that returned back to the moon with her was Hagoromo. The similarities here are quite obvious. Kaguya descends from space down to the world. She lives amongst humans for a little bit until humans realize that she herself is not human, at which point she has to return to outer space. However, in Naruto, how it happens is that Hagoromo and Hamura seal her in the moon, which does technically send her back to the moon, even though the moon didn't exist prior to her being sealed. So the entire purpose of Kaguya's character in Tale of the Bamboo Cutter is returning her to the moon, while in Naruto, the entire purpose is resealing her inside of of the moon. Hagoromo is instrumental in the representation of sending her back to the moon, because in the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, she was sent back with a Hagoromo, and in Naruto, she was sent back by Hagoromo. Then Hagoromo would go on to take the 10 tails that she kind of was for a little bit and split it into 9-tailed beasts, who are all very symbolic. The first and most obvious out of all of the connections between the tailed beasts and real-life animals or mythological entities would be the one-tailed Shikaku, because Shikaku is very clearly modeled after a tanuki, which is a Japanese raccoon dog, and they exist, though they were vaulted in Japanese mythology as yokai for a long time. In fact, a lot of people believe that Shibai, the Otsutsuki god, is based off of one of the 3 famous tanuki of Japanese mythology, Shibaemon Tanuki, but we don't know that yet, and that's an entirely different video, so we're not going to talk about it now. Now, tanuki in Japanese mythology and storytelling are always arch enemies of one type of animal, and that one type of animal is foxes, which is why Shukaku and Kurama bicker so much. Because obviously Kurama is a fox, a 9-tailed fox or a kyubi, and Shukaku is a tanuki. But Shukaku symbology actually goes far beyond just a tanuki, because Shukaku, and more specifically Shukaku and his first Jinchuriki, are based off of an old Japanese tale called Bunbuku Chagama. Folktale versions of this story popped up in 1871. See, in the folktale tellings of this story, the tanuki transforms into a tea kettle, so that the human that owns this tanuki can sell the tea kettle to a priest, and then the tanuki can turn back into a tanuki and run away after they get the money. However, this folktale is based off a legend, where Bunbuku Chagama is the name of a tea kettle owned by a priest named Shukaku. However, the tea kettle turned out to be an ancient raccoon dog, or a Mujina. The leader of the Mujina bandits in Boruto, Shojoji has the ability to shapeshift because he's based off the Mujina of this story. However, there are obviously more connections than just the Mujina bandits to this story, as we all know that when the Sand Villages catches Shukaku for the first time, they seal Shukaku and Bunpuku, not Bunbuku. Bunbuku is the name of the story. Bunpuku with a B is the name of the first Jinchuriki of Shukaku inside of a tea kettle. And this isn't the only time that Shukaku ends up in a teapot or tea kettle of sorts, as when he's transported from the Hidden Sand Village to the Hidden Leaf Village by Team 7, he's also once again put in a pot, which is all a reference to Bunbuku Chagama. But that's not where the symbology in the 9-tailed beast ends, because Son Goku is also a reference to that guy we brought up already, Sun Wukong. Son Goku the Four Tails is kinda based off Goku, who's kinda based off Sun Wukong. See, Son Goku was referred to as the king of the sage monkeys, which is exactly what Sun Wukong is referred to as. But more than that, there's also the fact that Hagoromo decided to place Son Goku in a mountainous area with a waterfall, because in the beginning of the journey to the west, Sun Wukong lives in a cave with a bunch of other monkeys, and in order to start his journey, he has to traverse through a waterfall to leave the cave. So Son Goku being placed in a mountainous area with waterfalls is a reference to where Sun Wukong started from. But Nick, are we done with the journey to the west yet? Nope. Now, the rest of the tailed beasts aren't really references to anything, I don't think. I think the 8 tails might be a reference to something. I'm spacing it if it is, though. And the 7 tails is just based off a stag beetle. I think the 2 tails, Matatabi, might be based off some mythological cat. Oh yeah, it's kind of minor. Matatabi is based off the Nekomata, which is a Japanese folktale that when a cat reaches a certain age, its tail will split into 2, and at that point it becomes evil. And it's a yokai, which is a Japanese mythological creature, like the unicorn or the chupacabra. The 6 tails is based off the Sazaoni, which are snail demons that hunted pirates and took their treasure. However, in order to pull pirates to them, they would look like beautiful women, and then once the pirates got close enough, back to snail demons. But back to the Journey of the West, because characters like Son Goku and Hiruzen and Monkey King Enma aren't the only references to the Journey to the West that we see in Naruto, as characters like Kinkaku and Ginkaku are also references to the Journey of the West. Well, like, they are and they aren't. See, prior to Kinkaku and Ginkaku being 2 demon brothers within the Journey of the West, Kinkakuji and Ginkakuji were temples in Japan, specifically Buddhist Zen temples in Kyoto. Now, Kinkakuji is the gold tower, and it's the much more famous of the 2. Basically, if you've ever been to Kyoto or if ever had a friend who went to Kyoto, they've been to Kinkakuji. And if you're ever planning to go to Kyoto, I recommend you do go to Kinkakuji. It's a 3-story pagoda with the outside layered in gold leaf, and an emperor's soul is enshrined there. The Japanese don't have like physical mummies, but they always enshrine the soul of their emperors into a temple. Now, Kinkakuji is the less famous of the 2 towers, and that's probably because it's the silver tower, and people just like gold more than silver historically. But these 2 towers are always viewed as 2 separate entities that coexisted, and that idea was put to paper in the Journey to the West, where Kinkaku and Ginkaku are 2 demon brothers that come up against Sun Wukong, and represent arguably his strongest challenge in the entirety of the Journey to the West. They battle against Sun Wukong, but they also kidnap his master. And the reason that Kinkaku and Ginkaku, the two demon brothers, are so powerful is because they were born from a nine-tailed vixen. So I'm sure you can see the relation here. But enough about the journey to the west, let's go way further back than that. Let's talk about Shinto lore. Now, Shintoism is kind of like the Greek mythology of Japan. It was the primarily believed religion in Japan until things like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity found Japanese mainland. Many things, and I mean many things in Naruto, are named after Shinto lore. In fact, pretty much every single thing that has to do with an evolved version of the Sharingan ties its roots back to Shinto lore. Amaterasu, an MS ability that allows you to manifest black flames that burn forever, is just the name of the Japanese sun goddess. On top of Amaterasu being the goddess of the sun, she also had the ability to transform into a crow, much in the same way that Zeus would turn into hawks and fly down to humanity. Now, obviously, the connection here is from Amaterasu to Itachi, as Itachi not only wields Amaterasu and was the first person to do so, but also ties the majority of his kit to crows. Now, Susanoo is the Japanese god of thunder and storms, and is known most widely within Shinto lore for killing the great white snake Orochi with the sword of Totsuka, which is why you're now understanding where Kishimoto might have got the idea of Itachi using his Totsuka blade to stab the white snake version of Orochimaru in the face. Sins between Itachi and Amaterasu don't end here. These are three treasures that are passed down from emperor to emperor, and are specifically kept out of the eye of the public to symbolize the authority that the emperor has over Japan. Now, each of these three treasures is meant to represent the three core values of the emperor and Japan: valor, wisdom, and benevolence. Now, the history of these three imperial regalia is kind of cool, as the three treasures were actually brought down to the earth by Ninigi no Mikoto, who is the first ancestor of the Japanese imperial line, and who was sent down to earth by his grandmother Amaterasu to pacify Japan. And thus these treasured regalia are passed from emperor to emperor to symbolize their descendancy from Amaterasu. And you'll find the names of these three imperial regalia rather interesting, as they are the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, also known as Kusanagi blade, Yatsu no Kagami, also known as the Yata mirror, and the Yasakani no Magatama, also known as the Magatama bead. Now, while the sword of Kusanagi isn't tied to a Susanoo and is just wielded by Orochimaru and is said to be able to cut through anything, the Yata mirror is absolutely wielded on a Susanoo, specifically by Itachi, who ties a large amount of his inspiration to Amaterasu. And the Yasakani no Magatama is also wielded by Itachi and Madara. And this is an attack when an incomplete Susanoo creates beads of chakra that it throws at an enemy. And all of these beads are in the shape of the actual Imperial Regalia jewel. But why only connect Itachi to Amaterasu? Why not connect Itachi to other incredibly powerful gods? Because Itachi's other MS ability is Tsukiyomi, which is just the name of the Japanese god of the moon. And as an MS wielder, Itachi also has access to things like Izanami and Izanagi, who are kind of the progenitor gods of Shinto ideology, who created all of the other primary gods and Japan. As one day when Izanagi was washing his face in a river, he created three new gods: Amaterasu, who was born from his left eye, Tsukiyomi, who was born from his right eye, and Susanoo, who was born from his nose. But enough about Itachi, what about his brother? Well, obviously, Sasuke wields Amaterasu, and we've already covered that. But Sasuke's other ability, Kagutsuchi, is just named after the Japanese god of fire, while things like Koto Matsukame refer to the era in which all Japanese deity lived together. However, there is one outlier amongst the MS abilities, and that would be Kamui. See, Kamui is not based off of Shinto lore, it's actually based off of Ainu lore. See, here's the thing. Way back in the day in Japan's history, the southern island and the northern island didn't really talk all that much, mostly because traveling was hard. Thus, the ancestral people of Hokkaido didn't pray to Shinto ideology. They prayed to Ainu ideology, and Kamui is a divine figure in Ainu ideology. But the influence of naming things based off gods doesn't end there, as Raijin, and more specifically things like Flying Raijin, are obviously inspired by the Japanese god of lightning, Raijin. However, this isn't the only thing in Naruto that's influenced by Raijin. In actuality, the two stupid brothers, who you may or may not remember, are two criminals who were thrown into prison for killing their comrades, but then break out of said prison. Now, both of these brothers are incredibly stupid, but they're also incredibly strong, and their primary motivation for doing anything is food. Now, these two legendary stupid brothers' names are Raijin and Fujin, who are the Japanese gods of lightning and wind. And within Shinto lore, Raijin and Fujin were notorious troublemakers who would kind of just destroy large parts of humanity, mostly because humanity couldn't do anything to stop them. Oh, and literally cannot believe I didn't talk about this when I was talking about the tailed beasts. Kurama is obviously based off of the Kyuubi. I mean, I guess I said that, but I didn't get into what a Kyuubi is. But foxes in Japanese mythology were sometimes referred to as kitsune. Well, that is to say that some foxes were kitsune. And kitsune had the ability to transform. That is, that they could shapeshift, and usually they would shapeshift into the form of a woman. Now, this is why when Naruto sees Kushina for the first time as he's rampaging in his battle against Nagato, that he believes that Kushina is actually just Kurama taking a different shape. This is a reference to the fact that Kurama, as a nine-tailed fox, would be a shapeshifter and would shapeshift into that of a woman. Now, any fox technically has the ability to become a Kyuubi, because once a fox hits 100 years old, they gain another tail. So when a fox becomes 1,000 years old, they become a Kyuubi. That is to say, a nine-tailed fox. And once these foxes became Kyuubi, they gained a massive amount of power, becoming yokai. And these nine-tailed foxes were feared and revered, as foxes in Japan are actually symbols of good harvest, as Inari, the Shinto god of rice, is actually a fox. Which is why one of the most famous shrines in all of Japan, the Fushimi Inari Shrine, you know, the one with the thousands of orange gates, has a ton of foxes all around it because it is a shrine built to Inari, the god of rice. But while we're talking about important animals in Naruto, we might as well talk about Garuda. Garuda, for those of you who don't know, is Sasuke's hawk summoning. And Garuda technically hails from Hindu mythology. Now, Garuda is referred to as the king of all birds, but was also known as the devourer and the enemy of all snakes, which is supposed to be symbolic because after Manda's death in the battle against Deidara, Sasuke uses his hawk summoning much more often than his snake summonings. While at the same time, him beginning to summon Garuda happens after he becomes an enemy of Orochimaru, the great white snake. But enough about hawks, let's talk about gods, but no longer Shinto gods. Because Shinto gods aren't the only place that Masashi Kishimoto got inspiration. He also takes a ton of content from Hinduism. And in no spot is that more evident than Indra and Ashura. In Hindu mythology, Indra is a Hindu god who wields thunderbolts, which is why Sasuke Susanoo uses lightning and has the ability Indra's arrow. Now, Indra in Hindu mythology also has a bow. However, his bow is a rainbow. Now, interestingly enough, in Hindu mythology, Indra is the good guy and Asura is the bad guy, as Asura is a power-hungry entity bent on destroying the world and the heavens above, and Indra has to defeat this entity through the power of his bow. But obviously, the roles were reversed here because Sasuke wields lightning abilities, so his connection to Indra made way more sense than having Naruto have a connection to Indra. However, Asura is a six-armed, three-faced god, which is why Asura's chakra mode that he uses against Indra Susanoo has three faces and six arms, and why Naruto's Asura Kurama cloak has three faces and six arms. But this isn't the only time that Indra and Asura's reincarnations have been symbolically tied to Hinduism, as almost all of the Rinnegan's paths tie their origin back to Hindu mythology. The Asura path is obviously tied back to Asura, to mechanically alter your body and gain new limbs or new faces. Deva, which is the Hindu word for god, gave you the ability to control attractive and repulsive forces, giving you godlike power. The Preta path, which allows you to absorb all ninjutsu, is based off of ghostly supernatural beings that live in torment for eternity as they try to satiate their insatiable hunger and thirst, which is obviously symbolic of the fact that the Preta path can absorb all ninjutsu, quenching an insatiable thirst for chakra. And the Naraka path, which gives you the ability to summon the king of hell, is based off the Hindu idea of hell. And Naraka, and this is kind of a bad explanation, but a short one, is Hinduism's version of hell, where souls go to be cleansed for their sins. Now, ironically, Naraka is where Yama, which is what Monkey King Enma, resides. So in actuality, the king of hell is Enma. And on the other side of the coin, that is to say Hashirama, his thousand-armed variable Kanon, you know the move where he makes a giant Hindu god with 1,000 wooden arms that was able to slap a Susanoo off of Kurama, is based off the Hindu Buddhist creation of Avalokitesvara, a 1,000-armed, 12-faced god. But Avalokitesvara in Japanese is referred to as Senju Kanon, as Senju is 1,000. And there is so much more. So many minor details, so many minor characters, basically just ripped from Japanese mythology and thrown into the Naruto universe. Here, we'll go speed round. The seven swordsmen of the mist are based off the Shichini Mizaki, who were a group of 7 yokai. Now, these 7 yokai were ghost samurai, who all died in a boat crash out on the ocean, which is why the Shichini Mizaki only appeared near bodies of water, just like the 7 swordsmen of the mist. And these 7 ghost yokai would show up and try to either possess a host or kill them, and therefore anybody who lived near the water was very afraid of them. them. From the Sound Village 4 is based off a story from 1254, also known as Kokoncho Monju, which tells a story of a boy named Kitamaru, the Oni boy. Now, Kitamaru spends his entire life trying to get revenge for being thrown out of a temple. However, Kitamaru, blinded by his own rage and lust for revenge, is eventually killed by an enemy's very accurately placed arrow, which is obviously symbolic of how Neji kills him by sending up his gentle fist through his spider string connected to his arrow. Kakuzu is based off of Kuchisake Onna, which, if you're watching JJK, Kuchisake Onna is actually the cursed spirit that Geto summoned in the battle against Toji, the one with the scissors who asked Toji if she was pretty, as Kuchisake Onna was a yokai from Japanese mythology who was armed with a sharp pair of scissors. Now, Kuchisake Onna had straight slicked back hair and a propensity for violence, and she would ask people if they believed that she was pretty after revealing her mutilated, stitched face, as Kuchisake Onna in English is slit-mouthed woman, which is where Kishimoto got the character design for Kakuzu, though obviously they have very different abilities. And so on and so forth. You get it. Naruto is not an original story. Naruto's named after a fish cake, Sasuke's named after a dead ninja, and Sakura's named after a tree. So nobody can truly steal anything from Naruto because barely anything from Naruto wasn't stolen in the first place. But the thing is, this isn't only a circumstance in Japanese anime. Everybody, everywhere who's ever written a story that we've enjoyed has been influenced by other outside media. One of the best examples of this is George Lucas with Star Wars. Avid readers and watchers of Star Wars would understand that George Lucas is heavily influenced by things like Greek mythology, as Darth Maul has been very actively compared to characters like Sisyphus. And therefore, the next time that you see a large amount of similarity between two separate anime, don't go, oh, this anime stole from this other anime. Get to the core of the issue. Look up the names of the characters that you believe are being copied. Look into the stories that influence the stories that influence you. And truly, once you understand these stories and what influenced them to come into being, you can begin to not only understand these stories as they were meant to be understood, but also hypothesize where these stories might end. And to me, at least, that's one of the funnest ways to consume media. But what do you guys think? Now that you have a better understanding of what's inspired Naruto to come into creation as it is today, do you guys appreciate the universe more, or do you appreciate it less? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Ooh, had to use a side of my brain that I haven't used in a while today.